The Imani Winds were founded in 1997 and are one of the world's premier wind quintets. The group has performed in major concert venues, including Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, and the Kennedy Center, and is frequently engaged by the Premier Chamber Music Series in Boston, San Francisco, New York, etc. They have also played at several major university performing arts series, including in Ann Arbor, Austin, Stanford, and of course here most recently. And the group has also traveled internationally, touring in China, Singapore, Brazil, and throughout Europe. In addition to performing, Imani Winds is committed to promoting diverse voices in classical music by both commissioning works and engaging in outreach programs. And we'll talk a lot more about this in just a second. So without much further ado, welcome the Imani Winds. All right, so before we get started on some other questions, could you all please first introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Monica Ellis, and I am the bassoonist of Imani Winds.
Jeff Scott, French hornist.
My name is Mark Dover, clarinet.
Toyin Spellman Diaz, the oboist of Imani Winds.
I'm Valerie Coleman, the flutist.
Can you guys all, can you hear us just like this?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, but it sounds so much more official this way. NPR.
Actually, though, I think that if everyone scoots up, because the recorder is right there, so I think if everyone scoots up, then we can just not use
That means the front row, not the
It's a good recording.
All right. Okay, so the first question that I have is, could you talk about how the Imani Winds formed and how you determined your goals to actively promote new music and voices?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I want to ask, how many of you guys were born in 1997? Just out of curiosity. Oh, my Lord.
96.
Well, most of you were infants at the time that we got together. We were all in college. And we all went to different schools. I went to Mannes College of Music, which is a part of the new school. Toyin and Monica, they were at the time at Manhattan School, although I think you were a Juilliard, though, right? You had just finished Juilliard.
Yeah, I went to Juilliard and then Manhattan School for
Okay.
a postgraduate thing, and
Yes.
where I ran back into Toyin.
Yes, Mark, he was all of 2 years old, probably. 10? Oh, still a baby. And Jeff, he had just finished his master's and he was working towards his doctorate, but I think you were on Broadway at that point. You were a legitimized freelancer in New York City.
Gainfully employed.
Gainfully employed. So during that time, I had just moved to New York City, and I was in what they call sublet. You guys have sublet apartments and rooms. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my career when I get out of grad school? Because it's only a 2-year program. And at that point, the name Imani Winds popped into my head before the group. So that was actually what gave me the courage to call up each and every single person through recommendation. So one person recommended another, and we all basically sat down in a practice room to read through some music. Mind you, 4 out of 5 of us were in college at that point. We had a different clarinetist at the time, a lady named Miriam Adam, who I met at a summer music festival, and we all kind of converged to New York at the same time. So I think that was a serendipitous thing that kind of determined the fate of the group coming together. But so yeah, we sat in a practice room and I was thinking in my brain, oh, this is so great. And everybody else was like, what time is it? Is it time to go here? And you know, from there it was a matter of setting our goals and and really, I'm so grateful that everyone was so open to the idea of even just getting together and making chamber music as an ensemble, and setting goals of doing concerts around town. So we did that. We contacted a local church, and we did our first recital, and we outnumbered the audience. And you know, something in my little crazy brain said, okay, let's make this a concert series. And over time, the audience started to build a little bit more, and we decided to also do competitions. And it was through our competitions that we first got management, which allowed us to do touring in different cities in the U.S. for the very first time. So it was all a real exciting time. And I think over the span of our early existence, each person gave in a different way. And the amount of investment each person had happened at different times. So, you know, that's something that is actually a good leading point into those of you who plan to do chamber music, or who are already in chamber music. Always know that it's quite normal that there might be one person or two people that keep the energy going, and if their energy wanes, then, you know, somebody else will step up. There's always that kind of rotation of energy that happens. And that's a beautiful thing for chamber music, because it allows each and every single person to develop their own leadership skills to be a valuable addition to the group. And we have to nurture and respect that.
Great. And so I know another thing that really stands out about you guys is that two of y'all are actually composers, and I think that like makes this group even more unique. So I was wondering how you saw your composition backgrounds fitting into the group, and whether that had anything to do with your like goals of wanting to commission new works.
Yeah, well, that's Valerie and I. We contribute a good percentage of the repertoire that the ensemble performs. Just a brief history of wind quintet literature. Donzi, Rika, they slept for about 50 years. And then a couple of other composers, but you know, we don't have the Mozarts, the Brahms, the Strausses, the Bartoks, and so on. So we don't have great literature from the great composers of the 18th and 19th, and only starting in the 20th century. Valerie and I knew that there were two things that were going to happen in this ensemble. We were going to have to contribute to, you know, have diverse music in the canon, and to be able to tour. And also we were going to have to commission. We were going to have to push the whole idea of new music. You just can't survive without repertoire, you know. And so you celebrate the idea that you're starting with sort of a blank palette, you know, and celebrate the diversity of the instruments that are in the ensemble. And I think that's part of the reason why we don't have the literature from the other composers, because they saw it as more of sort of a cacophony of odd instruments that don't really sort of work in a homogeneous way. But the 20th century composers actually decided they were going to celebrate that idea and really sort of just bring the great characteristics of all those different instruments to the fore, celebrate it. So, yeah, Valerie and I, we compose out of necessity sometimes. If we need an opener piece or a closer, full-length piece, sometimes by project. And I'm sure we'll probably, especially when we start talking about more about diversity, anybody here can talk about the different projects that we have and how we've all contributed. But yeah, we've both contributed a lot.
Yeah, one album that you definitely contributed to was your Grammy-nominated one, Classical Underground. And that was your first record on a major label as well, which is just really, really impressive. So I guess I have many questions related to this. Like, what was it like to be nominated, and how you went about making your record's track list, especially putting Jeff and Valerie's compositions on it, and how has this record influenced the direction your ensemble and your subsequent records took?
Well, I think that it was a very exciting time for us. It's been almost 10 years ago since we made that record and got the Grammy nomination, and of course, every record since then, you hope you'll get that sort of accolade again, and it hasn't happened as of yet, but we can always say that we are Grammy nominated, and we're really proud of everything we've put out since then. And how we made that track list, that's a really cool question, actually, because it does speak to repertoire, and it speaks to who you are as a group and what you want to actually put down on tape as a representation of the group. So in a lot of ways it was, and for that matter, a lot of our couple of albums after that, it's been just things that we are doing at the time, repertoire that we're touring, repertoire that really speaks to us. We had the beginnings of that album, we had the beginnings of a wonderful collaboration with Paquito de Rivera. We recorded his Iris Tropicalis, which has now become one of the seminal pieces of the wind quintet literature. It's been around for about 25 years or so. So we decided to record that, and we had just sort of gotten to know Paquito a bit, and it's a long 20-minute multi-movement work, so we knew it would take up a lot of, good chunk of time. And then we were examining some of Valerie's arrangements of spirituals. And we recorded a beautiful one-track spiritual called Steal Away. And so we were into these different, it was kind of our beginnings of identifying the what the group would ultimately become. I mean, it was in 2005/6, so we had already been around for some years, but it was the official first record. So on a more large national platform, we had not been as of yet. So Jeff did some arrangements. He did a Libre Tango arrangement, which is by the master Argentinian tango master Piazzolla, and he has since done multiple arrangements by Piazzolla. What the heck else is on that record? Chiffrin, which is this tune called La Nouvelle Orléans. So it's interesting repertoire that I think represents the future of wind quintet ultimately, and which is what we have tried to do ever since then. Before then, up until then, and ever since then. You talked about the playlist. Oh, what was it like to get the Grammy nomination? Right. Well, I mean, super exciting. Our producer for the record, she happened to call me first, and that morning, and I then, this was not in the world of texting multiple people at the same time, so I guess you had to pick up the phone.
Not yet,
Not at that point, and you had to call somebody on their landline. And I called Valerie first, and I don't even know, and I said something like, are you sitting down?
Yeah, I was in the shower.
I remember
actually.
you were in the shower. Yes.
I don't remember how in the world the phone was in the bathroom at that. I don't take my phone with me to the shower, but on that particular day, it was there.
Right.
And it started ringing, and I literally poked my head out of the shower, and you're like, Valerie, are you sitting down?
Right. No, I'm not sitting down.
But people sing in the shower. At that point, I was screaming in the shower.
It was very, very exciting. We went to the Grammys that year, and there's for the classical and jazz music categories, there's a ceremony that happens before the evening ceremony that we see on TV. So kind of like next door to the Staples Center. Kind of like this room right here. It doesn't look too much different from this room. And then we were just excited to be there. We had our matching outfits on that we had recently gotten, these beautiful dresses that were made for us, and then we went to the show itself. You get tickets to see the real show. So I mean, it was a fantastic experience, one that we'll treasure. And again, but it's all about the forward. It's all about, like, that was a moment in time, and thank goodness we've had so many more of those moments in time. Multiple records, multiple travels that have taken us around the world that have allowed for us to have these fantastic experiences.
Yeah, I'm just out of curiosity. Since I, as a string player, I'm not very well versed in wind
quintet repertoire. How much of the records or of the tracks on your record would you say like weren't as much a part of the wind quintet repertoire, but you've really seen like become more standard?
Across the board of all of our albums, or that particular one?
Both.
I mean, across the board, the percentage is hardly, zero outside of wind quintet. I would say 5% are for the wind quintet. On that particular record, Paquito wrote it for wind quintet, so the percentage is a little bit higher. But then Jeff rearranged one of the movements to add singer and percussion. So that's, so that kind of screws with the percentage, with the ratio. But yeah, very little percent for all of our records is music that was written specifically for wind quintet. Our last one, not this most recent one, but about 4 years ago, Terra Incognita, all of those pieces were written specifically for us. So technically that's 100%, but they were for us. So
And then she was asking how many of them. Oh,
No.
Then she was asking, of the pieces for wind quintet that were written for wind quintet, how many of those have gone on to become part of the staple of the quintet repertoire?
Right, as we're going around to different colleges and universities, and we talk to people, and we see that the people are playing, especially the music written by Jeff and Valerie, a lot more. And they're out promoting their music. And actually, promotion is something I wanted to talk about, especially with records. You've probably heard this before, but records, like pop groups used to tour so they could sell records, and now people use their records to help promote their tours. So the function of recording has changed a lot, unless you're Beyonce. But for the most part, you're not going to make much money off of records. And for our first CD, the Classical Underground, our first commercially released CD, it served many different purposes for us in 2006, when I think it was 2007. It kind of set our brand. And after that, people knew us as this kind of classical underground group that does diverse music and all that stuff. But it was also the first time we had a large commercial PR push, because the record was behind us because it was our first album. And the record label was behind us because this was our first, they were excited because we were fresh and new, and subsequent albums, which we put just as much passion into and carefully chose the repertoire and everything, they might have gotten lesser of a push or more of a push, but the idea of having a brand and sticking to it, and then possibly even, dare I say, trying to push out of it too. Like you build a brand and you want to reimagine it and have it come out in some other way, and it's been over the span of our 20 years, that was 10 years ago. Since then, we've been trying to figure out, and we're somewhat successfully trying to figure out the new way of branding ourselves. You'll see this when you're 40-something. You don't want to stay the same way over time, but the trick to it all is to keep questioning yourself about how you want to be perceived. And so when we're talking about our next album now, actually, and of course, and the one after that too, and the one after that, but the way we're trying to figure out a new way in our next 20 years, the next thing that we want to have happen. So I thought that was an interesting point to bring up, especially within the idea of your recording.
And that, to me, and everything you're saying lends itself to one big point, and that is staying true to yourself as artists. Because when you do that, you'll find yourself at the forefront of any trend. You find yourself through your own voice dictating what can be, the style that other groups can pick up on. And I feel that that's something that has been understated, not spoken about, but just instinctually done within Imani Winds. And I think it's manifest fully in the original repertoire that we have brought to the table. Once again, it is a completely instinctual thing, Myself and Jeff, we're very blessed to see that our works have had legs, picked up by other groups, and our collaborations, such as with Paquito de Rivera and others, that repertoire has also picked up. And you know, just by default, because the repertoire is so limited within the chamber music configuration, chamber music groups are hungry to locate new pieces that really do bust the mold of being stigmatized as, you know, a light and fluffy wind quintet. And, you know, we want to have more substance in that. Obviously, we don't have a whole lot of works from the Romantic period. We don't have Brahms, you know, or, you know, in mid-20th century, we don't have Bartok and anything like that. So we do have the very few core gems. But really, the 21st century is speaking towards defining wind quintet, the likes that's never been seen. Like we're, you know, going to Trumpism. But yeah, so it's, you know, it's something that, because we're always hungry to find things, YouTube and you know, Bandcamp and iTunes, every time a wind quintet puts out an album, not just ours, we all kind of flock to it to see what kind of new music is on there. And for Imani Winds, there's always, more likely than not, an element of diversity that has not only gives a different flavor to what you hear in wind quintet music, but it also gives a different impact and a different purpose. So, you know, I'm really proud of this group in that sense that we have, in a lot of ways, helped to be at the forefront of defining the new repertoire that's out there. But at the same time, we're always open to finding new things from other groups as well.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you do that is the Legacy Commissioning Project, which you guys commissioned 10 composers of color, and you guys performed them. And I think that album that you mentioned was the one that was made completely up of, made of just people from the Legacy Commissioning Project. So could you talk a little bit about like the history of it, why you started it, and how it's shaped the classical and chamber music world, and also like why you think it's important to continue doing work like that?
Wow, that's another one really for Valerie, because it was kind of your brainchild. But I'll just start you off in that we knew right away that it was important to commission music from underrepresented folk, period. It's just, it's hard enough to get your music premiered no matter who you are. But definitely if you're African American or Latina or Asian or whatever, you know, if you're not from the standard European canon, it's hard to get music performed. And, you know, we have a platform that we stand on, and we decided to put our money where our mouths were. And then Val had this great idea. I just threw her a softball. Tell them about the project.
Yeah, it came, I think, after, when did it come? It came about slightly after our second album, and we were hungry still for, we always hung for Grammy, but you know, having that Grammy nomination really made an impact on us that made us feel recognized, that we were actually beginning to create a legacy of repertoire, a library. And so our 10th anniversary was nigh upon us. And so the idea of over a 5-year period to celebrate the 10th year anniversary, do the math, 2 composers for 5 years' time. Does that add up?
2 composers per year.
Yeah.
For 5 years.
For 5 years.
2 times 5.
So
You guys are University of Chicago.
Yeah. So it was called the Legacy Commissioning Project. And so it started off, we were in a little room at Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, and we had this stack of albums and CDs. And I just remember us just going through each and every single one. We had to locate these composers and get their albums. And you know, it was at a time where YouTube was not prevalent. I don't think YouTube was around at all at that point. And I just remember us going through them, and we had to give a unanimous yes or no for each composer. And Jeff was the one. You were the one, Jeff, you're like, I'm not feeling that, I'm not feeling that. Come on, Jeff, this is great. But when we identified the composers that we wanted to work with, we then did cold phone calls to them and said, you don't know us, but hey, would you be interested in a commission? And when do you think that commission could happen? And we didn't have the money for it at the time either, so we were pretty much blowing smoke, but we were lucky enough at that point in time to have management that was a real go-getter who loved projects. So he took our list and he started calling presenters across the country. And he managed to secure $5,000 there, $3,000 there, bit by bit. And so over the span of 5 years, I don't know how many composers we ended up with. We kind of left it loose. Mm-hmm. Our goal was 10, but I think we made it to maybe 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm. And then other people that came in on board that were actually outside of the project, we attached them to the project. So for instance, the Wayne Shorter Commission was not on our accord. We were asked to be a part of that commission. But we thought, if this isn't leaving a legacy, I don't know what is, and therefore you're a part of the Legacy Commissioning Project. So sometimes, sometimes pieces kind of molded, fit the mold on the other side. We went both ways on the approach.
And since then, we've had the decade anniversaries wax and wane like moons. And now we're in the next moon cycle of the 20th anniversary. Yeah, exactly. Like we're in the 20th anniversary waxing. So we're in the process of continuing the Legacy Commissioning Project and commissioning women composers now. So we have the first of our commissions that is being delivered to us hopefully next week by an Indian American composer named Rina Esmail, and she's writing us a piece, speaking of planetary movements, about space, because it is also the 100th anniversary of the writing of Holst's The Planets. Yeah. So we're kind of starting this little project on people's idea about cosmology. Or the cosmos, really, and so she's writing us a piece for that. And then, so, it continues, the Legacy Commissioning Project. We're kind of using that as a catch-all for these commissioning people who might not normally be commissioned.
Mm-hmm. That's really great. We definitely could always use more composers of color and women composers. What other programs, I know one of you mentioned earlier that you were just always working on various projects. What other programs and projects do you have to try to increase underrepresented minority involvement in classical music? And what kind of challenges have you faced in that endeavor?
If you don't know, Mark is 1 year into the group. We put a lot on his shoulder. He's been a soldier in that regard. Doing great. But yeah, maybe we'll I'll say one project that we've there's numbers. We do a lot of outreach. First of all, I would say outreach is probably about half of our touring schedule. Actual concerts. Just like, I wouldn't call what we do here necessarily outreach, but the actual concerts that we put on a concert stage usually is one night of a 3 or 4, sometimes a week-long stay in a city, where everything else is just working with students or going to schools or going to churches and doing some sort of other activity where you're reaching out to people that otherwise might not have had access to the ensemble. So that's kind of been a platform for the group since its inception. We're all products of public schools, and I think that talking about 20, 30 years ago, where at least where I grew up, there was a band or an orchestra, and all the way coming up. But looking back, especially in Far Rockaway, Queens, in New York City, it just doesn't even exist. My band director is a gym teacher now. there's no band, you know, there's just nothing. It doesn't exist in a lot of the smaller cities, and a lot of ensembles are doing outreach in the sense that they're going to underrepresented areas and just sometimes for the first time offering music and diverse instruments and diverse ideas about musical content. But that's always been part of our platform.
And here at University of Chicago is offering, this platform is offering another opportunity for us to do a lot of things that are these core values of why we exist. And speaking of the commissioning project, come April, you guys may know about this, we are with you celebrating the life of Gwendolyn Brooks. Yeah. And that's I know a huge part will be, I guess, in the spring semester, if I'm understanding, a big part of just the activities campus-wide. And so Amy Iwano of UC Presents talked to me and talked to the group about that and said, you know, let's, and by the way, she's just such a wonderful representation of a great presenter, you know, somebody that really supports the arts, supports their artists and the arts. But just has a forward-thinking mindset when it comes to programming, and very eclectic artists that are coming through, and people that we know even, just wide swaths of diverse artists. It's a great opportunity. It's just a great chance that we have to work with her, and by association, of course, the School of Music as well, through our residency. But anyway, the concert that we'll give in April will celebrate Gwendolyn Brooks, and we'll be going along the same idea of the Legacy Commissioning Project, focusing on women composers, and having Valerie compose a new piece for us, in addition to 2 other women composers that she's a part of a consortium, the BCO Consortium. Works, right? But it's 2 other women. A woman named Courtney Bryan, a beautiful jazz pianist and composer, fantastic Nigerian-American composer named Nkiru Okoye, who went to Oberlin with Torian and I for undergrad, and then the C is Valerie Coleman. So we're very excited about those projects. We're working here with the composers, so that we'll give a concert during the April time. Lots of stuff. I mean, we just stay really busy. We have our Chamber Music Festival that we are in the 7th year of. The Imani Winds Chamber Music Festival is coming up this summer again. It's a 10-day summer event. Again, it's in its 7th year, so that's no small feat to have something return 7 times in a row. It's completely run by us, but with support of another residency that we have at Manus. And just the tour, the 20th anniversary is going to really kick off with a bang next year. We're going to New Zealand. So that's our first tour come next fall, spring of 17. So the 17-18 season is our official 20th season. So it's going to be a lot of incredible concerts and tours. So we stay busy.
Yeah, it's like very incredible that like been around for basically 20 years, and a lot of your programs have such longevity, and that I feel like takes like, I don't know, a lot of work on not just like the producing music side, but also the sort of management side, especially your Chamber Music Festival that's mostly run by y'all. So let's see. I guess what challenges have you faced, like not just on the performing side, but also the business side, since that is such an important part of like being able to be part of this chamber group for such a long time?
I think it applies to any kind of business relationship. The problems we've had or the challenges we face are the same as many other businesses or organizations your organization might face. Somebody might be shouldering too much work. Somebody might be shouldering too little work. We might not support each other in the right way. Sometimes people bring up, we have to learn to, it doesn't just come naturally to be a nurturing ensemble group of people. You have to really work at that kind of thing. And so we're constantly checking ourselves. Fortunately, there are 5 of us So once we figured out kind of what we're good at and what we wanted to do, we tried to stick to that in general, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out. So people have stepped up, like Valerie was saying earlier. Sometimes people get tired of doing stuff, so others of us have stepped in to do things that weren't done before. So I think the overall overarching thing is it's the same tenet as being a good chamber musician, which is you have to listen to your fellow colleagues and be respectful of them. Just like in a marriage too, the two main problems can be money and communication. That's what they say. You'll see. And so, or not, you know. Those are the same problems we have, or challenges we have faced and overcome. Because being in an ensemble like this, we often spend more time together than we do with our mates. So it's important to us to keep this relationship nurturing and keep us laughing and having fun together. Music is supposed to be fun, and there are a lot of groups out there who don't necessarily have fun together, and that's a very sad thing, and we're fortunate enough that we do have fun with each other. Of course, we also have to sometimes step back and be in our own space too. Let's be honest, like we don't want to be together all the time. So we work on a lot of the same problems everybody else has.
What did you say, money and what?
Communication.
Money and communication.
Yeah, you got to learn how to say what you want without being too harsh, you know, and also there are a lot of misunderstandings too. People get in their head the way you are, and they don't. It's hard to bust out of that. It's hard to bust out of a placeholder that people give to each other. So
I was thinking on the lines of the money, that with any project in any business, that it's sometimes difficult to find ways of raising capital to foresee any kind of ideas that you may have in that moment. So I think over the span of almost 20 years, we have been even, we've learned the certain ins and outs of what grants are out there, but finding support, and I think that Monica can really speak to it in terms of, all the logistics that you have to do on a day-to-day basis and working with presenters, and it ties in because they are a part of that money factor as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say along the lines of logistics of business, to your question that, and it's even to Toyin's point that early on we all developed ways of recognizing everyone's really their strong points, and Mark, even being a year in, we're recognizing. I mean, he's a generation younger than us. We joked around of him being 10 years old in 1997, and then he's hiding under the table right now. But like he knows stuff that we just don't know because there's just that difference, that 10, 20-year difference. Well, not 20. Yeah, so no, we're kind of looking to him in a way of just being more minded of the social media aspect of this just this. We're like a half generation away, sort of kind of, and just thinking about new ways of recording, new ways of how music is produced, new ways of going after these commissions. It's just a different mindset than when we were 15 years ago. So that's an interesting thing that we're sort of gaining from him these days. But what I was going to kind of offer to you all is the idea of having a business mind attached to whatever you do. I know you guys aren't music majors. If you were, then that would be particularly important. But even as econ majors, as microbiology majors, as whatever you may be, you might form your own small business one day in a field that is going to apply some of your expertise that you learn here or not really. And you'll have to learn how to read contracts, and you'll have to learn how to really balance checkbook. Right. Yes, they're called checks, and you write on their little pieces of paper. You write on them. No, and it's not all online. But no, I mean, really just balancing books and understanding a budget and understanding, income, outcome. And as musicians, you have to have these skills even more so, because it's so important nowadays in this world to not just think that your career is going to be handed to you. And we've got a booking agent. We work with the presenters. They've got marketing. There's people. So there's people out there doing that. But then we have to come so diligently and precisely with our SHIT together, so that nobody's looking at us like, yeah, these folks can play, but man, they didn't call me back, or man, she can't respond to an email, or she's wow, they're late, just things like that. So it takes a lot of skills to run this small business, because that's essentially what it is.
And there's that cliche that everyone always hears, like, oh, you don't learn none of the things you learn in law school are, the things that you end up having to do in the real world of being a lawyer. And it sounds cliche to hear that, but I've found it to be so true, having just finished my master's just in 2012. I feel like almost all of my education has come, I mean, a lot of it in the past year since I've joined, but definitely just like being on the scene and like, being forced into the there's something about like a bubble that school provides where you have like this safe space where you can kind of develop, and then you think that you're getting all the tools, but I found that when I finished school, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Like what is the 1099? All the business side of things I wish someone had taught me, and the networking things, and that I found that the way that you interact with people and the social element of anything you do, whether you're a musician or an entrepreneur or really any profession, has such an impact on your development and how people see you. And so I've learned so much, on the job training, and just like all the other stuff that I wish that someone had taught me earlier. So that's another thing in terms of having the business savvy mindset. It's like you just kind of have to figure it out in real time, and everyone has their own way of going about doing that.
Yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind since I'll be graduating very soon.
You're a senior now, right?
Yeah.
Take care, man. Have a good rehearsal.
So I guess one thread that you were just talking about is the importance of having experience. So I was also wondering, with all of your experience running different programs and doing projects, trying to make the classical music world more inclusive, I was wondering what you thought were particularly effective programs or ways of doing that.
It's tough to say any one particular program. I think one of the things that we do as an ensemble is we try to give a diverse array of musics from really the entire canon that we have to show diversity in music. I mean, it's really, that's, like I said, been a platform of ours. I do think about a project we recently embarked upon that's sort of starting to combine a real diverse type of audience. I recently wrote a piece that highlights the music of Bach and John Coltrane. And it requires the ensemble, the Imani Winds, to also team up with a jazz trio and a string quartet. And the presenters have been, they've been supportive of the project, very supportive in fact. But in marketing that type of a show where you're hearing jazz and like pure classical music when you think about Bach, it's a bit of a conundrum. Like, how do you do that? But what we found is that these audiences are extremely diverse, because you're getting people that, really three sides of a coin, because some that have absolutely no idea what to expect, some that are just coming because they know Imani Winds and they know the type of programming we do, and then you have other people that like, they see Coltrane and they're like, yeah, I'm there, let's see, what's that about, and what you get is this kind of very diverse audience, and I think, getting jazz purists and classical purists sitting next to each other and checking out music and finding, a common way to go, yeah, I dig that. That's one way. It's one way. But I think that's really, like I said, indicative of the type of programming that we've done over the years, where we don't just play music from the European canon in one program. You're gonna hear diversity in our program, like tonight.
You know, it said the arts bears witness to the times. The arts bear witness to the times. And, you know, because of that, there's a particular relevancy when projects, you know, pay tribute or homage to either current events or historical events. I think that there's a universal thread, that common thread that brings not only musicians together, but all walks of life to appreciate those particular projects. There's a certain resonance that happens because it has the potential of bringing people down memory lane. For example, if there's a piece that's written about John F. Kennedy or Robert F. Kennedy, then people say, oh, I remember that speech. As a matter of fact, that speech was down the street at a park. Why don't you guys go check out this park? It's really amazing. Or, you know, it could be an opera based on Donald Trump that Mohammed Farouz has just written. And those things have an automatic appeal to the audiences. But as artists, it's our responsibility, once again, to be true to ourselves, but also be historians in that regard. We do have that strong responsibility of relaying events, relaying opinions, causing reactions, uplifting the audience. So I always believe the power of the project is indicative to the result that happens.
Great. So then I just have one more question, and then we'll open it up to audience questions. As you celebrate your 20th year as an ensemble, what are your proudest moments and new goals moving forward?
You know what? I'd like one of us to answer the proudest moments, and I don't want to hear him talk about goals.
Well,
Proudest moments when you hired me.
Yes.
Well, I mean, one of the proudest moments isn't the hire of you, but no, but I'm getting there. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. I'm getting there. All right. You know, we've been together 20 years, right? That's a proud moment. But it is a proud moment, and I feel like the way we're playing now and the way our brains are churning and going right now, I'm pretty darn proud of that. Like that, I'm pretty proud of how we've come from where we were to now. It's great. It's great. So I am proud that you're here, and I'm proud that we're together. But yeah, playing with Wayne Shorter was a moment. One of the greatest living jazz musicians on the planet. That was a proud moment. The Grammy moment was proud. Seeing some of these projects we've had come to fruition, like the Bach Coltrane thing, that featured my dad. It was poetry. So I was super proud through all that. Yeah. But yeah, things are looking good. We just have to just keep being smart about it. You know, we just have to keep thinking forward, and goals are there. But I think one of our main challenges is getting caught up in the moment, and have, like you may have homework and stuff to do. Well, we have to practice and take care of our children, and business stuff has to be done. And it's our main challenge is keeping the goals moving forward. And so I think we're working on that. I'll challenge you to work on it too. And I had a question for you, actually. A lot of your questions today have gone around diversity, and I think that's a large platform for us. Now, here's my question. How much of these diversity questions have you asked of your other panelists?
Well, actually, we started the panelist series because we wanted to talk more about diversity in classical music. So I actually was not able to attend that myself. So if someone else
one other panel,
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
But,
yeah, I just want to, and I really kind of have an agenda with that question, which is that we're proud to be a mostly African American and Mark ensemble. But I think it's a very important question. These questions of diversity should not just be asked of people of color. They need to be asked of everyone, because sometimes we feel that a lot of times we're asked these questions, what were the challenges of being a group of color? And it's all of our challenge. And I'm glad you're asking them, and I hope you can continue to ask them of everybody who's on the series. You know, as a woman of color, what you've had to face, and the organization is made up of a lot of women of color, and I think is wonderful. All women of color, yeah, love it. So, you know, I was pleased to see that, and I hope I put the challenge to you to keep it moving forward for everyone, not just we.
Yeah, I actually, I was talking to Amy Iwano last year, talking about how we wanted to continue doing panels like this, and she mentioned that you are going to be the new residence ensemble, and immediately suggested that this happen.
Yeah.
Marty,
Oh,
goals.
goals. Life goals. Squad goals. Squad goals.
Here you go.
I think, for me, this has been, personally, a total dream job, because chamber music is always my greatest passion. And so I felt like when I first joined, like, oh, well, this is it. That's cool. Like, I can, if just being in this ensemble was it for me, I would be like totally ecstatic. And now that I've been here for a year, I'm like, well, like, what's next? Because I think all musicians have that in our blood of wanting to reach for the next rung of the ladder. So I think so many of the great artists in any discipline have found a way to reinvent themselves and keep with the times and reflect the reflect where society is and where art is at any given point in time. When I think about people like Miles Davis and Wayne Shorter and Prince and and then of course classical composers like John Adams and Nico Muhly, people who have continued to push the boundary. I think for us as an ensemble, we all think that we want to find a way to reinvent ourselves musically and to challenge ourselves to kind of go for the unknown and push ourselves to play music that we've never played before and take risks. I think so much about what we do is about taking risks, and I know that you guys before in years past have taken those risks, stepping off into the world of improvisation, which for some of you wasn't something that you were necessarily used to doing on a regular basis, and now today I think of you all as really great improvisers because you took that risk. And Jeff was not really a trained composer before he joined the group. So for me personally, that's something I would like to push myself towards composing. I think I'd love to push the group towards collaborations in genres that are still not really thought about in terms of the wind quintet repertoire. So we've had these ideas of collaborating with Eastern European, Balkan composers and that type of music. I would love to figure out a way to incorporate Indian music and Hindustani music. That music of that area of the world would be really, I think, interesting. So in general, it's just kind of reaching for the unknown and challenging ourselves to collaborate with people and composers and cross-genre, cross-artistic disciplines, whether it be like artists and dancers, and so there's a lot of things. I'm kind of talking in circles, but just going further and reaching for the unknown, I think I think I can speak for the group and say that that's where we would like to see things.
Our brainstorming sessions to me are just as valuable as any rehearsal that we do. Because then we get to share what we get to go back to our own personal interests with music and what we've seen in the theater lately. We get to rediscover one another within that process. And so, I just think it's such a healing thing.
I know that anytime I have an idea for the group, I'll be sitting on the train or on the plane. I have a notepad of just ideas of collaborations. If an artist I come across, I'll write his name down. So, I think we're all thinking about what's next all the time. We're all 2 years ahead, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So,
So thank you so much. Well, now we can open it up to audience questions. I think just like raise your hand. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. I have 2 questions. Well, I have a ton of questions, but they're like both kind of just like fun. So one of them is, like I'm a string player, and so my like musical heroes, they're like the Brahms, Beethoven, like the Mozarts, and they are all people that obviously like don't look like me, and I like dressed up as like Beethoven for Halloween, but like that like means something different, right? The wig and everything, and all of my musical heroes, right? They're all these like old white dead men. And so I was wondering, in trying to kind of, find my, like, because, I like am an activist in a lot of ways, and trying to locate my love for music in something like activism, like I'm trying to find new heroes. So I was wondering if you could, like, talk about some of the heroes that you have and why they are your heroes. And then my other question is, I'm also I used to be in a bunch of chamber music groups too, and one of the things that we have to work out, of course, is like bonding, like you were saying, and being like a nurturing group. And I was wondering if you could like throw out some things that you've done as a group that were just like fun, just to, to like get to know each other.
Well, I'll answer that, the latter question first by saying one of my best memories, my fondest memories, is when we had a residency in May, and we were all in this one house. And somebody pulled out the Monopoly board. And for some reason, Jeff ended up owing everybody a lot.
Probably still do.
A lot of money. And just, the antics around that, Jeff, standing up with dollar bills in his hand saying, I'm a man.
That was a hard trip. Like, you bringing up Maine. If I were to bring up a moment where I was thinking at the exact same trip, because we were in this house, but it was cold, and we had one car, and we shared a bathroom. It was like hard, like not for musical reasons. It was just a hard trip. And I remember we took an abs class, YMCA together. You remember that class? And we would all go together to this abs class, and most of us did. And I felt like such a bond. We're like, come on, let's go to the Y. We're going to the Y. We're going to go. And that was another bonding experience. So out of this adversity, we had these moments of bonding, and I think that's part of why we managed to stay together.
Humor is so key.
Yeah.
Jeff and I spent a lot of time hanging outside of the gig too, and I feel like that, and with all of you, but I feel like, the dinners, and, Jeff and I play poker, so,
we lose at poker.
We lose at poker.
That's not just all.
It's fun.
Yeah, I feel like that's brought us closer together, just the time that you spend outside of the practice room.
I'll say this, in terms of people, heroes, and looking towards, folks. We don't have many role models to look towards at all, really.
I hate to interrupt you. When you say we, are you speaking generally?
Yeah, the ensemble.
Oh, the ensemble.
Yeah. Especially back in, when I was coming up in school in the 80s, if I'm looking around for African American French hornists in classical music, you can count them on one hand who are really out there truly making a career for themselves. I didn't want to do this, but I became part of a group that became the heroes, and it's not necessarily what we set out to do, but just gotta start somewhere, So if you're not seeing what you want to see in classical music on the stage or writing the music, or then if you're the activist, be that person. Find those other people with the same like minds and push the boundaries, even if you only make one step, you know. It's, like I said, not what we set necessarily out to do, to be the heroes, you know, but we knew there weren't many African-American chamber music ensembles touring in the United States. And so this was not by accident that we put this group together. And we didn't know it was going to be successful, but we knew that that was part of the mission. So it's probably the best thing I can say to that.
You know, I was lucky enough that my parents, you were saying there's a handful of black French horn players. My parents went out and found music teachers who were African American for me. They made the specific effort. So my first flute teacher, my first oboe teacher, most of my first teachers up until I was in high school were all African American, and they were very, very high caliber. So I think they're out there, but they're unrecognized too. There's a generation, especially right before ours or two before ours, that went out there and were doing things like one of those French horn players Jeff was talking about on his hand. He was out there in the 70s doing stuff, so they were there, and I think you'll do some research. There's a lot of people here in Chicago who are doing some cool stuff, and so I think as you're here, you can do some research yourself on who these new heroes might be for yourself.
Okay, short question, then long question. Not a wind player, why is there a French horn in your ensemble? And that just like musically seems like, I don't know, it kind of stood out to me. Like, is it always true? Does it like add something? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they can answer that.
Whole lot of problems.
The wind quintet is the concept is that you take principal players from the wind section of an orchestra, and you know you do light chamber music. You know, we're talking back in the 17th and 18th century so far. My firm belief is that if the saxophone had been invented back then, it's a woodwind, and it blends easier with woodwinds, and I think it might have been the instrument of choice, but the French horn was the one instrument, especially then because it was a smaller sounding and smaller instrument in general, that blended well. If you know the Renaissance French horn, it didn't have valves, and it was really small and had a really, really different range and role in the orchestra. It didn't overpower the woodwinds, but could help them, you know, be strong when they needed to be. And so it was kind of the logical choice as opposed to, say, a trumpet or a trombone or something.
You had a long question.
Okay, long question. So it's kind of based off of it. So, I mean, I'm a classical musician. I spend a lot of time playing like composers that you mentioned, and people who frankly like look like me, and like just being very much in the classical canon. But I'm really interested in new music, but I don't really know how to like go for it, like where to start, how to break out. And to be honest, like a lot of new music feels really like hyper intellectual and like atonal and abstract, and like it's really interesting, but it feels like hard to like dig into. Whereas the way that you guys seem to have like expanded and like collaborated with other genres and other people seems very like organic, and it seems like it feels right. Like how do you start doing that?
Well, I think one thing about this group, I think a lot of times modern music is kind of associated with things that are that is maybe a little bit impersonal and can have this kind of boundary. And I think a lot of that has to do with this idea of tonality, and so much of like the what we call like the second Viennese school composers of the 20th century, so Arnold Schoenberg and Webern and these kind of composers were writing music that was met with a lot of the same kind of ideas. But us as an ensemble, we love that music, but I think we recognize the importance of performing music that still speaks to people on an emotional level. So we try to mix the modern music that we perform with tonality. So a lot of the modern music that we play is actually very tonal and is full of melody and is not necessarily atonal. And I don't think that one has to cancel the other out. I mean, you can have modern music that is still has beautiful singing, heart-wrenching melodies, you know, And when I think of the Parent, he you know, was very much a modernist, but he embraced the concept of tonality. And so, and then the other thing I would say is that like atonal music is like, for me, an acquired taste. And I use this analogy of beer, that, you know, it's like you gotta learn to like it. You know, the first time you drink beer, you know, but you know, so you develop a palate for it. And I think the more that your ear becomes conditioned to hearing tonality in a different way, so not necessarily based on the 7-note scale, the more your ear starts to kind of create an association with beauty and melody that, you know, maybe someone who hasn't been surrounded by that music wouldn't hear. So I would encourage you to go to concerts, because I think atonal music is best experienced live. So go to concerts and keep an open mind, and I think that a lot of you will start, if you do feel kind of disillusioned, you'll start to find things in the music. Maybe it's not necessarily the melody, but the colors and the gestures and the emotional intensity of the way something is played that will start to speak to you. Because I know that when I started listening to Schoenberg, I wasn't really that into it, and now I listen to it, and I can listen to it, and, you know, maybe not for 10 hours, but.
and I would just add that here in Chicago, there's such a fantastic music scene on many different levels. And the first time we were here, the first day we got here back in October was we got here at the end of this Ear Taxi Festival. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, and I know that kind of happens, that was a one-off sort of huge event, but it was only this one time. It's not recurring, as far as what I understand. But from that, perhaps there's some offshoot organizations and concert series that you can check out, per what Mark is saying, not only here on campus, which might be a little bit more limiting since there's not music majors that are constantly giving their senior recitals. And you know, we were a part of that environment where you just always were around music as a college student, going to a conservatory. But yeah, explore what the city has to offer for you, because there might be some opportunities to open up that palette even more and try to get a little bit more into it. And you know what? We also said in a couple of other panels since we've been here, if certain pieces or types of music aren't for you, that's okay. I never listen to atonal music. it's very rare. I mean, it's more of a study for me. I don't really have the ear for it to be that enjoyable. I mean, and I'm open though. I'm very open, but it's not necessarily something that I go to automatically. So it's okay if it doesn't attract you or you're not attracted to it immediately. But finding those places could be kind of fun, you know.
I came a bit late. And you may have answered this earlier, and this is a whole different question from what she just asked. So if it's not on your brains, that's fine. But as far as you guys tour, what does tour management look like? Are you guys involved with tour management, or do you have an outside source?
Well, we have a booking agent who is really amazing about, you know, his job is to really be a liaison between the chamber music presenters and us as a group. So he negotiates the fees, and typically his office puts together an itinerary. So, you know, which is really awesome, because a lot of groups, you know, especially when they're first starting out, have to do all that themselves. Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, Monica does a lot of work behind the scenes, facilitating that. So, I mean, she's buying plane tickets and booking hotel rooms, but, I mean, you know, so she does an insane amount of work, but we do have the agency that facilitates things. So, and then, you know, we're lucky enough as the rest of us, not Monica, just getting an email the day before with like a PDF with like our, you know,
daily schedule.
Daily schedule, our flight confirmation, our hotel confirmation, our rental car, and so that makes it so easy.
You said that you claim that you do an insane amount of work. How did you go about choosing this agent? You know, what was the thought process?
That's a really good question. Well, yeah, just really fast history. We had, this is our third agent in the history of the group. So 1997, we formed. 2001, we get our first agent. We had those guys for about 3 years. They were a non-commercial organization called Concert Artists Guild, and the idea is for you to graduate from them. So then we went on to another agent for a good.
How we got it.
Oh, it's through an audition. Yeah, it's through this audition. You win the opportunity to have management, and so we were with them for 2 years, and then we were with another organization who saw us at a showcase, because through Concert Artists Guild, these opportunities just presented themselves, and then they decided to take us on. And then there ended up being an offshoot from them, and so we were with the same people, we'll call it, just under different auspices, for a good 12, 13 years. So about 3 years ago, we started to recognize that we wanted a different model. We wanted a different type of person working out there for us, and we felt like we needed some fresh energy. But it was a tough decision to move on to a different agency, because Valerie actually spoke of these folks. They were really great at finding commissioning funds, for instance. But we were not lacking in work, and that was the first thing that who we were with now. He said, "Why do you need somebody new? Because you guys work all the time." So there was this sort of, and this is really interesting for you guys, I think. There was this non-tangible, untangible quality that we said, "Yeah, we do work, but we just feel like we needed more autonomy. We needed more." These people knew us since we were kids, so to speak. And there was this sense of still being treated like that, even though they knew we were out there working hard, playing well. But there was this sense of a fatherly figure, and we kind of over the kids, and we just needed to get away from that. So we ended up with kind of vetting different organizations and found who we're with now. And I mean, it could not be more of a stark comparison. They're very, very different styles. We barely see him. It's just like, "Hello, this is Bill. Hi, Monica. Okay, good. All right, great. Bye." I mean, zero social aspect to it. I mean, cordial, so for sure, but so about the business. And for us at this point in our career, I think that was what we needed, that sort of direct thing. And just the aspect of I mean, so I'm the liaison between, there's liaisons on top of liaisons. And what did you say about rituals got rituals? Right, so he finds the work, and then he passes that information on to me. We've got this particular offer, how's this sound, work some stuff out. I'll bring that offer to the group and giving them the information, and then we say yay or nay. And then if tours can actually be established, good routing, good, so that we're not coming back and forth, spending money on plane tickets, then that's a good thing. But yeah, I'm a little OCD-ish, so so I've got that particular quality, and thank you. Yes, he knows me so well. But no, I am proud when we don't have to worry about things. That makes me happy, because they're happy, and we are collectively happy when there's certain parts of what the logistics of any given gig are taken care of, and then nobody's wondering what's going on. And so that I love that occurs, because then the music can just be the only thing we're worried about. Artistically speaking, we're all in on that, but when it comes to these business aspects. So, if you're in some sort of organization, you're with other people, and somebody has that skill, celebrate that. So, don't worry about it. Don't try to micromanage it and be like, I want to do it. Let them do it. Because if they want to do it, let them do it. Because there's plenty of other work.
Monica could probably run an entire air traffic control center on her own. She's like the queen of finding cheap flights, cheap hotels. It's a skill. It really is.
Yeah, I dig it. I do dig it at this point.
This is, for those of you who are interested in doing management work, booking agent, being the logistics person, it's really a strong career field.
It is.
And presenters and managers are always looking for interns. And you think, oh, well, intern, that doesn't mean I get paid much. But trust me, it is so worth being an intern, because it connects you automatically with these artists. It helps you to develop relationships with management. Then you find yourself going with this manager to conferences and meeting other management. And, then next thing you know, you have a nice padded resume to become a representative yourself. So being an intern is almost the quick and direct path. It's not an easy path, but it's a very direct path to developing that aspect if you want to go have that kind of career.
So do you guys need interns?
Yes.
And we can always recommend management companies for, that you could approach and say, hey, I'd like to be your intern, here's my resume.
Anybody else?
I sort of have another question. I was wondering what the process of finding Mark was.
Oh, that was fun. That was fun.
We looked in all the dark alleyways of New York City.
We trolled the internet. She trolled the internet.
Yeah, we all did. They did. Us girls kind of did it. We did.
Well, wait a second now. But you trolled Alan Katie's friends or friends, didn't you?
That's true.
Yeah, we all did that.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we kind of dug into the internet.
I did find it. I will take the credit for finding it.
Right.
Yes.
So we went in deep trying to find clarinetists that were in the general area near New York City, and just stumbled on some YouTube videos that he had put up and so forth. And the whole process of getting a new player was new for us. We had never done that before. So we even asked, you guys are probably familiar with the group Eighth Blackbird?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They have a new member, Natalie Jokum, she's a flautist, and even contacted her because she was a new member in the group and had gone through the process of, being vetted by Eighth Blackbird, and we were like, how did they do this? What was the process? So we actually took some advice from her on how to vet a new player, because it was a different thing for us to do. So he had to play his repertoire on video, and then ask some questions that we posed to him on video, so we could not only hear them, see them, but then see what their personality was like. Because if you can tell, we're kind of like a family here. We're just, we interact, really well together. That's a dynamic that a chemistry that it's important that it didn't get disrupted. It could be enhanced, but we didn't want it to be disrupted. And the best way you can sort of narrow the field is to sort of just see a person on video and see them react to certain questions. So he got the gig.
And then there was a final round, which was a long, 2-hour long reading session with the group where I played a whole program with the music and sight reading, and then they took me out to lunch, and then I had to wait, and then I waited like 3 weeks.
Sounds mean the way he says it.
No, it wasn't me. They had to think about it, but I mean, it was nerve-wracking. It was nerve-wracking.
We had other people to interview.
But I think it speaks to just how important your presence online is these days. And that's not just with music, but any kind of entrepreneurial pursuit or artistic pursuit, creative pursuit. They probably would not have found out about me if it weren't for Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think about, and I tell people about that, and they don't really believe that they literally just found me by typing in clarinet player. You know what I mean? It's crazy if you think about it. But yeah, I mean, I kind of when I was making the videos that they saw, I was like, man, I feel like this is so self-indulgent. What if people don't like it? It's costing money, But so all those things ended up turning into probably the best investments I could possibly.
Also says, be careful what you put online, because that is exactly how we vetted them. Great players. We definitely had finalists that were all fantastic players. Clearly he was the best of the lot, but if his videos online were off-putting in a personal kind of way, it might not have been such an easy decision for us. So just keep that in mind.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank Thank you so much for.